Elon Musk's son X spoke to Keanu Reeves about Jesus. What he said shocked everyone. Before we continue this story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe. Now let's begin. The private lounge was bathed in muted, warm light, designed for privacy and comfort, not attention. Thick velvet curtains softened the glare from outside. Cameras were nowhere in sight. For once, Elon Musk wasn't performing. He wasn't speaking at a tech summit or preparing for a satellite launch. He was just waiting, silently. Beside him sat his 14-year-old son, X, to everyone except his teachers and legal documents. The boy sat cross-legged, his thin fingers scrolling slowly across a tablet screen. The text on display wasn't a coding interface or a stock market graph. It was a Bible app. Highlighted words glowed faintly from the screen. The meek shall inherit the earth. Elon noticed the passage. He pretended not to. He shifted in his seat. "You're still reading that stuff?" he asked casually, as if inquiring about a forgotten hobby. X didn't look up. "It's not stuff. It's different now." Elon blinked slowly, suppressing the flicker of concern that rose behind his eyes. "Different how?" Before the boy could answer, there was a soft knock at the door. X's head snapped up. "He's here." Elon glanced toward the entrance, confused. He hadn't been told about any guests. The producers weren't supposed to interrupt. The door opened. Keanu Reeves stepped inside with the quiet grace of someone used to rooms falling silent. He wore a dark gray coat over a simple black shirt. His hair was loose, falling past his jaw, and there was a softness in his eyes that didn't match the world's usual perception of him. Elon's eyebrows raised. "Keanu." Keanu gave a small nod. "Hey, sorry if this is awkward." X reached out. Elon turned to his son. "You did what?" X stood, face flushed but resolute. "I messaged his assistant. Told him I had a question. He said he'd come." The tension in the room shifted, no longer quiet, just heavy. Elon looked from his son to Keanu. Something was happening here, and for once, he didn't understand the code behind it. Keanu took a seat across from them, his hands resting lightly on his knees. Silence lingered. Elon glanced toward his son, then back at the man whose presence had somehow shifted the gravity of the room. X held the tablet tightly now, as though it were a shield. "I've been reading about Jesus," he said, voice steady, "and I wanted to ask someone who doesn't sell it." Keanu didn't flinch. He nodded slowly, as if that was the most honest thing he'd heard in a long time. Elon folded his arms, leaning back. He didn't want to interrupt, not yet. But the familiar voice in his head, the engineer, the skeptic, was already beginning to churn. It had started a few months ago. X had come home one evening and casually mentioned a verse from the Gospel of John. Elon had laughed at first, thinking it was a meme or a classroom joke. But it wasn't. His son, the child raised around circuit boards and optimization models, had begun asking questions no data set could answer. He remembered walking past X's room one night and hearing whispered prayers. Not rehearsed or scripted, real ones. Soft, hesitant, vulnerable. That night, he didn't sleep. Elon wasn't angry. He was afraid, not of God, but of losing control, of being unable to explain things anymore. His own mother had once believed deeply, but his father, cold, arrogant, mathematically certain, had laughed faith out of the house. Elon had absorbed that silence, replaced mystery with equations. And now, his own son was undoing that. Across from him, Keanu cleared his throat gently. "You know," he began, looking not at Elon, but at X when my best friend died, and then a few years later, my girlfriend. I didn't know what to do with that kind of pain. X's eyes widened, soaking in every word. "I didn't grow up religious," Keanu continued. "But there was this moment. I was alone, sitting on a bench, and I picked up a hotel Bible. I wasn't searching for answers. I just needed something that felt kinder than my thoughts." Elon's jaw tightened. He remembered that moment between them. Years ago, off camera, in an empty corridor at a tech event in Berlin. They had crossed paths unexpectedly. Elon, sleepless and overwhelmed with a failed prototype, had joked about whether machines could simulate the soul. Keanu had said something strange then, something Elon had dismissed until now. "Maybe the soul isn't simulated," he had said softly. "Maybe it's the part of us that stays kind even when life isn't." Now, watching his son lean toward Keanu with quiet trust, Elon felt that same unease again, gentle but undeniable. The lines between logic and love, between control and surrender, were beginning to blur. He didn't know what he feared more, that Keanu might be wrong, or that he might be right. The room had settled into a silence that didn't feel awkward, just expectant. X sat on the edge of the sofa now, elbows on his knees, tablet forgotten on the coffee table. He looked at Keanu with something Elon hadn't seen in his son's eyes for a long time. Wonder. Then came a question. Do you believe Jesus was real, or just a story people made up to feel safe? The question hung in the air, too bold and too innocent at the same time. Elon sat forward, a reflex. X. Keanu lifted a gentle hand without looking at Elon, and X raised his palm too, quietly signaling his father to let the question breathe. Elon exhaled and leaned back, folding his arms again. He was bracing himself for a sermon, a speech, a scripted response. But what came next was neither. Keanu didn't rush. He let the silence linger a few more seconds before speaking, his voice quiet but steady. I don't know if I believe everything the way people expect you to believe it, he began. But I do know this. He paused, eyes drifting down to the floor, where sunlight leaked across the rug in delicate strips. I was 16 when my father died. It was sudden. There was no goodbye. Just gone. And my mom tried her best, but grief can make even love feel hollow. I started staying out late, drinking, getting into fights. Not because I was rebellious. I was just trying to feel anything at all. X leaned in. Keanu looked up, his voice softer now. One night, I ended up at a church. Not during a service. It was empty, cold, but open. I sat in the back pew, thinking maybe someone would kick me out. Nobody did. I looked at this painting of Jesus, not on the cross, but washing someone's feet. He smiled faintly, a far-off look in his eyes. And for some reason, I started crying. I didn't even know why. I didn't think I believed in anything. But something in that image, this man who had every reason to give up, who had been betrayed, mocked, and still chose to serve, made me feel less alone. Not fixed, not holy, just less alone. X blinked slowly. Elon's fingers had curled around the armrest. Keanu continued. So when you asked me if he was real, I don't know how to prove that to anyone. But he was real to me that night. Real enough to keep me from disappearing. The silence that followed wasn't just respectful. It was stunned. Not from shock, but from the depth of it. Then X spoke, his voice small but clear. I think maybe people don't need someone to worship. Maybe they just need someone who won't leave. Keanu inhaled slowly, visibly moved. Elon turned to his son, genuinely startled by the weight of that sentence. It didn't sound like something a 14-year-old would say. It sounded like something that had come from somewhere else, somewhere deeper. And for a moment, all three of them sat in that quiet pocket of time, where logic had no foothold and words felt heavier than science. Elon didn't say anything. He couldn't. He just stared ahead, unmoving, something inside him shifting like tectonic plates. Not collapsing, just loosening. He realized he didn't know what scared him more, that his son was changing, or that he might have been waiting for this change all along. 3 days later, Elon's phone buzzed violently on the glass-top table beside his bed. He blinked awake, still groggy from a late-night flight, and glanced at the screen. 24 missed calls. His heart rate picked up, not because he feared a crash or crisis, but because every instinct told him this was personal. He opened his inbox. The subject lines hit like cold water. Keanu's faith moment with Elon's son. Secret footage? Elon Musk's son asks about Jesus. Keanu answers. World listens. He clicked one of the links. It was a clip, 1 minute, 32 seconds long. The video opened inside the lounge. Elon recognized the angle immediately. The studio's internal security camera. The angle was low, far from cinematic, but the audio was clear. The moment was unmistakable. Keanu's voice played softly through the speaker. And I picked up a hotel Bible. I wasn't searching for answers. I just needed something that felt kinder than my thoughts. Then came X's voice, unshaken and clear. Maybe people don't need someone to worship. Maybe they just need someone who won't leave. Elon stared at the screen, then at the view count for 0.2 million, and climbing. He rushed out of bed and dialed the studio coordinator. The assistant picked up, voice trembling. I didn't know the backup drives were still syncing. I swear I didn't mean. Elon cut him off. Who posted it? I think someone on post-production staff found it. It's everywhere now. Reddit, TikTok, Twitter. The Times already called for comment. The news cycle detonated like wildfire. Keanu Reeves preaches faith to Elon Musk's son. Elon's son questions God. Keanu answers like a saint. Musk's empire shaken by son's spiritual curiosity. Podcasts speculated whether Elon was undergoing a midlife religious shift. Evangelical influencers dissected the video frame by frame. Atheist forums launched meme wars. Spiritual pages began quoting Keanu like scripture. Everyone had something to say, except Keanu. He made no statements, no tweets, no clarifications. He simply disappeared from the conversation, letting the silence become its own kind of answer. X, meanwhile, became a quiet icon. Photos of him, blurry and candid, were reposted with hashtags like #BraveX and #FaithInTheFuture. Teen forums and church youth groups began messaging Elon's foundation directly, asking if X would speak at events. A Christian magazine offered to interview him, from one young soul to another. Elon declined them all. He sat at his desk, watching clip after clip, article after article, trying to decode what had just happened. Not the PR disaster that he could handle. It was the look on his son's face in the video. Not rebellious, not performative, just sincere, unapologetically searching. It wasn't the public scrutiny that shook him. It was the quiet realization that his son had already crossed some invisible line, had already begun walking into a world Elon had no map for. A world of meaning that couldn't be measured in payloads or neural links. And Elon, who had built rockets to escape gravity, now found himself held down by something far heavier: uncertainty. He'd always prided himself on being ahead of the curve, seeing things coming before the rest of the world caught on. But he hadn't seen this. Hadn't seen X choosing questions over answers, vulnerability over logic, soul over software. For the first time in decades, Elon felt behind. Late that evening, he texted Keanu. Just 3 words. Did you know? No reply came that night. No reply came the next day. But in a strange way, the silence said everything. Keanu hadn't planned this. He hadn't sought a platform or provocation. He had simply answered a question with a story. A human one. And somehow, that was enough to shake the loudest man in the world. The house was quiet, eerily so. No buzzing drones. No keyboard clatter. Just silence and the soft hum of wind outside the glass walls. Elon stood at the edge of the living room, watching X curled up on the couch with a book. Not a device, not a screen, a paperback. The kind of thing Elon used to mock as dead trees. X looked up calm. I know why you're here. Elon hesitated, his voice gentler than usual. I'm not here to stop you. X gave a small nod, not defensive, just waiting. Elon sat down beside him, elbows on his knees. I don't understand what's happening to you, and that terrifies me. X turned the book over in his hands. It terrifies me too. They sat there for a moment, breathing in sync. Then Elon continued, quietly. I was 8 when my father told me people who believed in God were cowards. He said belief was a crutch for the intellectually weak. He laughed under his breath, bitter. He used to make me recite physics equations before bed. Said they were more reliable than prayers. X's face softened. I used to think I was free, Elon said, his voice cracking. Free from superstition. From needing anything bigger than what I could build. He swallowed hard. But I also promised myself, when I became a father, I'd never lie to my kids. Even about the hard stuff. Even if I didn't believe it. He turned to X fully now, eyes glassy, unguarded. So here's the truth. I don't know if there's a God. I don't know if there's a soul. But I do know I'm afraid of losing you to something I can't explain or control. X leaned closer, his voice barely a whisper. Then maybe just believe in me for now. Elon froze. Those words hit harder than any headline, harder than any rocket explosion or boardroom betrayal. Because in that moment, it wasn't about God. It wasn't about science. It was about a sun reaching back across a widening distance between them, offering a bridge. Not a challenge. A gift. Elon's throat tightened. He looked away, blinking fast. But it was too late. The tears came anyway. Slow, unfamiliar, and wholly unmechanical. He pressed a hand to his mouth, trying to contain it, but it cracked through. Years of armor, decades of precision and control, dissolved by a single sentence from a boy still learning to believe. X didn't speak. He just sat beside his father, silent and steady. And for the first time in years, Elon Musk allowed himself to fall apart. Not because he had failed, but because he had finally felt something real. Elon arrived unannounced. No cameras, no assistants, no entourage. Just him, a plain black jacket, and the weight of 1,000 thoughts he didn't yet know how to say. Keanu was in the back of a quiet bookstore tucked away in Topanga Canyon. Of course he was. He looked up as the door creaked open, eyes meeting Elon's without surprise, as if he'd known this moment would come eventually. They didn't shake hands. They didn't exchange pleasantries. They just sat, side by side on a weathered bench near the philosophy section, both staring at a wall of worn titles. Elon broke the silence first. He's different now, braver than I ever was. Keanu said nothing. I keep trying to measure it, you know? Elon added, this shift, this thing happening inside him. But there's no metric, no algorithm, just this unknown space I don't know how to step into. Keanu nodded slowly, his voice quiet but clear. Faith isn't about knowing. It's about being okay with not knowing and still being kind. Elon looked down at his hands. For once, he had no data to dispute, no model to upgrade. Just that sentence echoing through him like a simple, ancient truth. He didn't respond. He just sat there, the silence between them speaking louder than words. That night, back at the house, the desert sky stretched above them like a deep ocean of stars. Elon and X sat outside in canvas chairs, a soft breeze brushing past the rosemary bushes near the deck. No screens, no noise, just space, and the two of them learning to share it. X looked up, a blanket around his shoulders, the same paperback resting on his lap. Elon stared at the stars for a long while before speaking. I don't know what's out there, he said quietly, not taking his eyes off the sky. But if you ever want to talk about it, I'll be there. X turned toward him, not with excitement or triumph, but with a calm, knowing smile. The kind that said, that's enough. They didn't speak again that night. They didn't need to, because something had shifted, not in ideology, not in certainty, but in presence. And sometimes, presence is the only miracle a father and son ever need. The clip continued to trend for a few more days, gaining millions of views, thousands of reaction videos, and a carousel of headlines. Everyone had something to say, preachers, pundits, philosophers, even comedians. But as with all things online, the noise faded. The world moved on to the next controversy, the next quote, the next celebrity whisper. What didn't fade was the quiet change inside the Musk home. Elon had returned to his usual schedule, board meetings, design reviews, testing zones, but something was different now. He didn't rush past X's bedroom door like before. He paused more, listened more. One evening, after a long day, he stood outside X's room with something in his hand, a slim, navy blue book, the Bible. The same one X had left on the kitchen counter weeks ago, spine cracked and underlined in pencil. He didn't open it right away to disprove it or to win a debate. He opened it simply to read the words that had once comforted his son. Blessed are the peacemakers. Do not be afraid, for I am with you, even if I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. The words didn't convert him, but they softened something. That night, Elon quietly slipped a folded note beneath X's door and walked away without a sound. X opened it after finishing his nightly reading. Inside, in Elon's unmistakable handwriting, were just 8 words. I don't believe it yet, but I believe in you. X didn't run to hug him, didn't cry or celebrate. He just stared at the note for a long while, then gently placed it inside his Bible, between the pages of the Sermon on the Mount. Later, he turned off his lamp and looked out the window at the sky. Its vast silence no longer lonely but full. And somewhere down the hall, Elon sat at his desk, staring at the same stars, not as a physicist but as a father. The narrator's voice, soft and steady, closes the story. Sometimes, faith doesn't begin in a church or a book. It begins when a father listens and a son believes.